This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. Welcome to A Life in Film. I'm Elliot James Langridge. I'm an actor, writer, and apparently a podcaster, and I love film. This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story? Previous guests include Toby Jones, Sam Clement, Natalie Emmanuel, Andrea Riseborough, and Tony Curran, to name a few. From Mulan to playing the iconic Bruce Lee, our guest today is actor Jason Scott Lee.
It's a life in film. 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 Woo!
How's it going?
Good, man. This is, I'm going to say straight away, this is a mad one for me because your face I grew up with. You know, as a kid, The Jungle Book was a huge film for me. I remember going down to Blockbuster, renting it out multiple times.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I eventually graduated to Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. I was a little bit older then, though. So, yeah, I just want to say this is a real pleasure. And yeah, I'm a big fan of your work.
Cool. Thank you, man. Are you in you're in London?
Yeah, I'm in London. Yeah, it's a little bit miserable here. You're in LA at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you out there promoting the new movie?
Correct. Yeah, we're here. They're doing a West Coast premiere tonight, as a matter of fact. And then
Nice.
we're gonna let it run for a while.
Cramming it all in.
Yeah. Here till Sunday.
Oh, very nice. How's it all going with the promotion of the film? I mean, I've heard only great things, and I really enjoyed the movie when I watched it. How's it all going with the promotion?
Yeah, it's pretty good. You know, with any indie, it's a struggle because the campaign is you know, kind of rocky. But you know, there's you know, a lot of times not enough money, and you can't get to the venues properly, and it's just been kind of like up and down. But I think the reception of the audiences has been fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I have to say the movie doesn't look like an indie. It just looks beautiful. And it's a really moving film, and I really want to get onto that and chat about that. But first, can we go back to how it all began for you? Like how I mean, obviously you had a couple of really big wins early on in your career, but what was the first kind of little job that you had, and what brought you into the film industry?
I think that the first job I remember taking on as a paid actor, because there were so many things like student films that I did in my younger years, and you know, just doing favors and things and stuff like that. But what I remember vividly was getting a part on Cheech Marin's Born in East LA back in the late 80s. And that was just an incredible highlight, you know, as a young actor and be a part of, you know, I grew up on Up in Smoke and Cheech and Chong films. And so it was kind of like, wow, you know, I was in awe of being around Cheech and just his work ethic and seeing his, you know, his cultural aspects about, you know, what he is and who he is and all that. So that was, you know, that was an eye opener because he had such international notoriety at that time. So a lot of his film crew that he brought on, like makeup artists and costumes, were all European. We're all like from Amsterdam or some, you know, other European country. And so that was kind of like an interesting mix for a young, I think, what it was, I like maybe 19 or something like that.
Wow.
And
19.
Yeah.
So very, I mean, you'd obviously done like, as you say, short films and things like that before that, but going onto a set where there's a little bit more at stake, do you remember what that was like? Do you remember the kind of, was there pressure there?
Oh, well, not so much with Cheech's movie. I mean, it's all this stuff you learn in like acting workshop or acting study, and it's like, and then it just gets blown out of the water because it's like you just fitting into the program, and it's like, okay, you just do what you know. But I think the bigger challenge for me as an actor was when I was cast in Map of the Human Heart. That was a Vincent Ward film, and that was one that like again took me into an international arena of actors and filmmakers and producers, and but that challenged me to find the range because the character in the picture had to age
Mm,
pretty dramatically. So that was something that was like really uh, rewarding, I
mm,
guess.
mm,
And just being in really foreign territory up in the Canadian Arctic, and the weather and the rough country, and you know that's the kind of thing. It's like very so adventurous,
mm.
and it kind of like goes along with kind of my spirited nature. So I was like, really sucking it all up, and it was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
that was like so juicy. And just to be, have my that was my first leading man role in a film, in a feature. So,
Mm,
that again was a big milestone for me.
mm, mm. And you say obviously getting used to the climate and being where where you were filming there in the rough terrain. Am I right in saying you were born in LA but you grew up in Hawaii?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay,
I grew.
good. I got it the right way around.
Yeah, no, my both my parents were from Hawaii originally. Grew up,
Mm,
born and raised, and found themselves in Los Angeles. And I was the third child in their family, and yeah, my father was like, I really wanted you kids to be raised back in the islands where he grew up, so he could do all the things, his hobbies and stuff that he enjoyed doing, and share it with us. And also, we have all our family, relatives and stuff back there. So that was the thing that motivated. And I was 2 years old, so I remember very little of Los Angeles.
mm.
And then just growing up and growing up an island kid, really like going to the beach. I remember just, having a 10 cents, a dime, and dropping in the bus. And me and my buddies, when I think we were like 8, 9 years old, jumping on the bus, going to the beach all day, just spending
Mm.
like 12 hours a day at the beach, and then jumping back on the bus, dropping the dime, and like cost us 20 cents for the day. It was and that was like just the bomb. I mean, that was the best, it was like that freedom
That sounds
growing up.
amazing.
And just we had like they had these little food trucks back then that were like little Asian food trucks that would sell these char siu bao and like these fried noodles, and that
Oh,
was like
nice.
a quarter. It was like, so it didn't, back in those days, being raised in Hawaii was really free. We had that kind of sensibility, and just you didn't need a lot of money to be happy.
Mm, mm,
Like, I always remember those days, and it's like kind of like the direction I took my life afterwards, even with
mm.
all the Hollywood and the LA stuff, the film stuff, but it always stayed at the core of my heart, really.
Yeah, I mean that sounds incredible. How long did you live there? What age were you when you went returned to LA?
Right around 19 years old. Yeah.
Oh wow, so you were there for a long time, yeah.
Yeah, I was in LA for yeah, raised in Hawaii, and then went to LA, and I lived in Los Angeles for about 8 years.
Mm, mm.
And I initially went, I had I don't know what other people call it, but we had what we call calabash cousins and a
Right.
calabash uncle. And calabash is a bowl, and it's like extended friends of my parents who felt like uncles and aunties, but no blood relation. And
Mm.
one of my calabash uncles, he had a son, and I went over. He said, "Oh, why don't you come over and for a holiday?" And I said, okay. I was like, I saved up all my pennies and my dollars from doing busboy work at a Tony Roma's rib shop. And I went over there and then spent like I thought it was only going to be like maybe a couple weeks. And he says, if you're comfortable, man, just stay longer. So ended up 3 weeks. Altogether, it was like 2 months I was gone. And I don't know where I got the money to stay that long, but I ended up he said, oh, why don't you just stay and go to classes out here, like, continue your school. And I said, that's a great idea. And so we were in Fullerton, California, which is Orange County, just outside of the county outside of LA County. And he helped me get enrolled in Fullerton Junior College. And I had to pay this high tuition because I was out of state. And I called my parents and said, I'm going to go to school here. And they completely shut me down. They said, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. And they said, well, so long as you're continuing your education, it's cool. So I went back to Hawaii for a week, collected all my belongings, emptied my small little bank account, and I took everything and I went. And I had a roof over my head because my Calabash cousins and stuff. And I just went to school for the first couple of semesters. And the first semester, I took a stage acting class as an elective course with liberal arts, kind of thing. And then the second year, I took acting for the camera class, which was run by this gentleman named Sal Romeo. And Sal Romeo said, I think you got a lot of potential. It's like, I'm going to be starting a small black box theater up in Los Angeles in the Hollywood area. He says, you're welcome to come. I would love to have you, like be a part of it. So I had a car. I bought a junky car, like a 1967 Volkswagen Beetle, and paid $500 for it. And my Calabash cousin helped me bodywork it, sand it, prime it, paint it, get it tuned up. And I drove that rickety car like all the way up to Hollywood from Orange County, which was like a good hour, sometimes hour and a half drive one way. And in if Volkswagen Beetles, they have this thing where the radio goes in, this little space. And I didn't have any money to buy a radio or anything. So that was my air conditioning. So when I would drive, the wind would come through this little opening in the dash, and it was just like, and the whole way it was just like going like this, on the freeway. And it was just, I remember this so vividly. It's so classic, it's just one of those things, like a young actor, just like, struggling and just, making his way up to some acting workshops, and it would, it didn't matter like what the distance was. It was like, I was kind of like, I want to do this, the drive and the desire to be a part of that little theater community, in Los Angeles. And I remember quite a few notable actors now would come through the workshops, and we were all like, doing scene work and stuff like that. So I remember like Mark Ruffalo was there, and like Benicio del Toro came. He was there for a little while, and I guess Sal Romeo was pretty popular with a lot of actors. They kind of, everyone talks. It's a small community back then, and yeah, it was cool.
I love hearing stories like that of, people like you, where you see you on the screen and you can't imagine a time where you were in a rickety old, car with no radio. And it's good to hear. I'm an actor as well. And I'm not driving in a rickety old car. I've been doing it a few years, but it's those moments where you think, God, it starts so different to hopefully what it will become. And your first couple of steps, I mean, one of your pretty early on, you had a small role in Back to the Future 2, which, I mean, what obviously the first one had come out. So when you got that role, were you like, oh my God, I'm in Back to the Future 2? Was that kind of a big moment?
Yeah, because absolutely, that was huge. Because I knew it was a big film. It was Robert Zemeckis, and he had already made a name for himself. And Back to the Future, the first segment was such a big, huge hit. So like to be involved with the sequel, and like just I knew, I was like, this is something really interesting, really big, because nobody was using that technology of what Zemeckis was using at the time. I mean, I never been on a place with such giant green screens, and all that. And then the stuff that they use, when I saw little bits and pieces that were um, edited together and stuff, I was like, wow, this is really, you knew you were a part of something innovative.
Mm.
And just the projecting the time period in the future and seeing what these concept cars look like, and seeing, it look like Teslas, just, everything looked
Yeah.
like exactly what it is, or what they turned out to be, as far as engineering and set design, and just a lot of the props that were around.
Mm. Well, there's even a website that has a list of all the things that are in Back to the Future that actually became real things, and there's a huge list. So it's amazing.
It's
They were
huge.
very on point.
Yeah, amazing. All the iPad stuff and the phone thing and the shoes that pump up, and there were so
Yeah.
many things that and that way it was so exciting to go to work, because go to work you just see all this stuff, all the extras being costumed up, and the kind of things that they wore in their hair, or kind of
Mm.
makeup, or everything across the board was really like, wow, this I could see that. You're thinking, yeah, I could see that. I could see them, coming up doing that. And so that and just playing that role, and having like a little, I don't know, with Zemeckis, it was kind of a thing. I don't know why he made my costume the way it was, but it was like a real Japanese influence costume, which I thought was, oh, that's pretty. He was inclusive of sort of an Asian, you know, presence
Mm-mm.
in that small role. And
It being in the 1980s as well at that time, I mean, hopefully things have moved on since then in terms of like inclusivity and they're being more open-minded to giving roles to, every kind of, it's a lot more mixed now. Have you found that it's got better? Or because I know that you've this has been a thing with your career, that you've always said that there should be more inclusivity for actors from different backgrounds. Do you think it's improved at all, or?
I think TV has done a wonderful job of creating that diversity.
Mm,
Maybe film has still some catching up to do. But there are like themes that they have come up with, like, oh, it's an Asian theme movie, like we did with Mulan, or it's an Polynesian theme movie, like they did with Moana, or so you have those that kind of inclusivity. But like and you see some of it, the integration within features, but like very rare do you see it with Asians on par with maybe the other ethnicities,
mm,
um, such as maybe the only leading man action stuff is really Jackie Chan or Jet Li. That they have a certain thing that they do
mm,
that the
mm,
studio and they can capitalize on, so because they know exactly what they're gonna get, right? You hire Jackie Chan, that's you're gonna get Jackie Chan
mm,
and
mm,
Jet Li stuff. So I find that there hasn't been that much work in the sense of character work, and maybe that's just an influence of the Asian actors themselves.
mm,
Maybe there's not abilities. I mean, Benedict Wong is a big. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's an incredible character actor of Asian descent, right? And I think he's one of the best as far as if we're looking at Asian actors.
mm,
And there's a handful of us, I think, that are willing to take those kind of risks and really become certain characters.
mm, mm.
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, you got more choices now. We definitely got more platforms. But yeah, I think it's getting there. I mean, I recently kind of saw that the thing on Netflix called Beef, which had like
Oh
more
yeah, yeah, it's great.
cast, and that's like moving the needle, quite a bit.
100%.
Yeah,
A24 is very good at just doing really great films, series, and it doesn't matter. you know, who they cast, it's always brilliant. And as you say with Beef, it's nice to see that all Asian cast. And you know, some big names, some smaller names, but they're all, and it's such a great show. And it just shows you, I mean, why has this taken so long to get here?
Right.
It's mad, yeah. But
Yeah.
hopefully there'll be more of that. But I want to say that I feel like you, in a way, like obviously you mentioned Jackie Chan there and people like that, but you in the 90s, you were leading the way really as a leading man, an Asian leading man, and being in films. You know, I mean, I mean, it's incredible. You playing Bruce Lee. I mean, that must have been pretty nerve-wracking. Obviously, The Jungle Book and doing movies like that, big kind of tentpole movies. You know, for a company like Disney, The Jungle Book. Did you at the time? Did it kind of dawn on you how much of a big deal that was?
I was really just kind of doing my job. I was excited to be in the business, and I didn't realize how good I had
Mm.
it because it was just being selected for those things. I had a very different like perspective, like choosing projects. Like Bruce Lee, of course, was like um not really handed to me, but I worked for getting in the door, but like and then worked really hard to really committed myself to make that happen. And then luckily I felt it came out really pretty polished. And then but then with Jungle Book, I went in. I didn't really have to audition, but I met with the director and we sat down and stuff. And that was the thing. Is like I wanted to see, people always said I wanted challenges.
Mm.
People always said, oh, what's the most difficult thing to work with? Children and animals. I said I want to work with animals because animals, they say, is the most difficult. And at the time, we did a little bit of CGI, but a lot of it was live action. So the director said it's going to be real animals. I said awesome. I said that's what I want. And
Mm.
so we did that. And those are the kind of choices. And then I did this other film called Rapa Nui, which, when it was introduced to me by Kevin Reynolds and Kevin Costner's company, um, I thought, awesome. I can explore my Polynesian ancestry, my Polynesian roots. And so it was those kind of things. It was, it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a hit or this is going to, and maybe very naive in the business sense, but I tell you, just life changing like experiences.
Mm.
I think because of those choices, um, and I knew like I had it. Okay, I can do certain things. And uh, I was looking for those challenges. Like like after the Bruce Lee film, I was looking for a vehicle. And that would utilize that skill set but also take it to the next level, like be able to contain all that emotion and that drive within that what that film was, and also do the action. So like an emotionally driven, character driven action picture. And then I didn't see that happen until like the Born Identity or something, or that kind of thing.
Mm.
And so I remember sitting in offices with the heads of studios and stuff, and we were working over like 3 picture deals and stuff, and I was trying to explain to them what I wanted to do, and it was so hard to convey that, because at the time it didn't exist, that kind of the kind of action that we see now, that's so prominent now, even with the Daniel Craig, 007 movies, that's the
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
because that was the action that Bruce brought to me when I, was influenced by working with his
Mm,
students.
mm.
Really like those really short exchanges, and the really explosive kind of things, and a lot of the low kicks, and the and even some of the stuff they're doing now with jujitsu and stuff in the action.
Mm, mm.
Um, so that was I was talking about, that was like the 90s. And that was hard to convey. I tell you, man, it's like, and then I see it happening, right? It was like 15 years later or something, 20 years later.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, oh, they're like,
Yeah,
ah. I feel like
Yeah.
Hollywood has taken a while to catch up because I mean, a lot of those things have been done years ago, as you say, like Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, and all these other people. Well, that kind of and also Jackie Chan is just so brilliant with bringing humor into it as well, and that whole
Yeah.
other section of it. But
I mean, if you look at yeah, if you look at like Enter the Dragon, right? What is Bruce in that character? He's a spy.
Mhm.
He's an agent. He's a 007 with a skill set. He comes from this background of being the Shaolin Temple, the best warrior of the selection, and gets chosen, and he goes undercover, and he goes into the island and infiltrates this thing. It was given to you in the 70s,
Mhm.
but I was pushing for something like that, like a character that would, to create a franchise that would, something like that. And have that Orientalism, a little bit, and have that, Asiatic, kind of like emphasis. But it was just hard to, really like. I think everything was so Western, everything had to be Westernized.
Mhm. I'm
Oh
glad that
well.
it's definitely at least it's going in the right direction. And one of the things about there's a moment in the Bruce Lee movie Dragon where his first movie comes out and then the whole crowd pick him up and they're like and they're holding him up. Was there kind of a moment for you when you went to see yourself on the screen playing Bruce Lee? And I'm sure that you took your friends and family to the premiere and everything else, and there you are on the big screen as the lead as Bruce Lee. Was there a moment like that where everyone was kind of like, "Oh my God, you've made it, you've done it, you're there, you are."
Yeah, it's a funny thing, It's like those moments are never the moments. The moment, you know what I mean. It's the moment, though. It's in the process, and after the process is done,
Mm,
the feeling that you had, like during the process of making it, that's like the winning ticket. That's the elation I think that you feel, and then all this time passes by before the
mm,
film gets released. So like I was already down in Easter Island on Rapa Nui. I was already down there filming, and they were releasing Dragon in the Man Chinese or whatever the theater is called now in Hollywood, and they had to fly me with Kevin Costner's plane and to arrive to be in LA, Hollywood for like 4 days or something, and three or 4 days, and then I flew back to Easter Island, and that was such a shock because I was in a completely different world. I was in Easter Island, which the population was at the time was like maybe 3,000 people, and just total isolation, and then get thrust right into like Hollywood and the a major city with all this cameras and lights and stuff, and then get
mm,
transported back to this isolation. So it was like it was exciting, but it was, I would have to say, almost anticlimactic in a way because the film affected me so much so that I carried with me all of that intensity, all of that
mm,
dynamics of that character, because I that and so it's like, yeah, that's that, but it's like you still feel it, you still feel that it's alive. Instead of, what I'm saying? It's not
mm,
one
mm.
moment that you feel it vibrating with you the
Yeah,
entire
yeah,
time.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's there's moments where if I've done a movie and I'm really nervous, like the first time you see something you're in and you're watching it and you're there almost almost saying the lines like you can change them. It's too late. Let it go. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Right. Yeah.
yeah,
You're a bit disconnected because you're really like kind of like really highly critical or judgmental about every aspect, and like I was that with Dragon. I was like, yeah, that could have happened just a hair beat sooner. That line
yeah.
could have done the angle of the head a little bit on this way. It's like
Mm,
you just like you can be nitpicky. It's
mm,
like,
mm. Yeah.
which is terrible. But you don't enjoy
Ah,
yeah.
perfectionist. That's that's part of it, isn't it? Now for a quick break. Are you a writer, director, actor, costume designer, perhaps makeup artist? Are you interested in camera? This is the place to share your journey. We want to hear from you. How did you start your career? Has it started yet? And perhaps, if you're feeling brave, share with us your most embarrassing film-related moment. So slip into our DMs at Life in Film Pod on Instagram. Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/Life in Film, where you'll get episodes early and uncut, amongst other treats. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life in Film Pod, and find our video episodes on YouTube by searching Elliot James Langridge Life in Film. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9-to-5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills, or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. And back to the show. I have to ask about the training for that. Am I right in thinking that you didn't have any sort of martial arts background before you did that film, but you had dance background?
No, I was very athletic in high school and growing up, and when you grow up around nature, you grow up around in the waves and stuff. You're pretty solid, physically. You're strong. But when I came to LA in the early days, I of course you don't have any money, so I find these like little Tai Chi workshops that this older Chinese man, Marshall Ho, was putting on in Griffith Park, and on Saturdays, I think it was Saturdays or Sundays, he'd just go out there and everybody would come and it was free, so he just does his thing and you just kind of copy him. And then on the side, he had these little videotapes. And so I bought a videotape and I started copying, some of the movements that they taught in the videotape. So the extent of not so much combative martial arts, but martial arts for meditation, for centering, was Tai Chi. Although it's like the blind leading the blind, I didn't have a teacher, so I just kind of like going along with the motions. And I felt something. I felt a certain, a tingle, a buzz, a grounding doing that. And then when I got the Bruce Lee film and they wanted to train, it's like we did the screen test first, right? So this stunt choreographer and stuntman, Steve Lambert, he came in. And he was assigned by Rob Cohen to train with me for the screen test. And we worked for a while, and I wasn't feeling like the Bruce thing because Steve had a different way of training. It didn't feel inclusive of what Bruce was or what I saw Bruce as growing up watching his films. So I was very kind of like confused, and I kind of had an emotional breakdown because like I felt like I wasn't going in the right direction, and this screen test was coming up. And so like for a week, I just kind of like had to shut down for a while. And I think it's what a lot of athletes nowadays are saying, they have this issues, with performance. And
wow,
so it's like that.
Really, so it really affected you, and that was before you even, started.
Yeah.
Started actually filming and got the role.
So it was a lot of, I was working out, it was like doing, like exercising things, and then I think Linda Lee called Rob Cohen's office, said, "Oh, who's training Jason?" And he said, "Oh, we have this guy Steve Lambert working with him." Where you go? And she said, "Do you think Steve could drive him and take him to these students at Bruce? They want to meet Jason." And so he said, okay. And so he took me to like, I think like five of the the old school guys. And I think Danny Inosanto, and then Ted Wong, yeah, and a bunch of others. And then we ended up at this guy's apartment. His name was Jerry Poteet. And Jerry Poteet said, oh, what do you know? What are they teaching you? I said, I don't know. They're teaching me to like dance around and stuff. He goes, what? And he goes, I'll show you what Bruce taught us. This was the first, what they call energy training that Bruce taught. And so he did this thing, and we call it a paksao lapsao. So it's
Right.
basically a forward thrusting hand and that hits an obstacle and then reverses its energy, and takes that resistance and reverses it, and then he grabs your wrist like that and like locks it, and your arm goes like that, and it's like, wow. And he did it just like so spontaneous, and he just jerked me on like involuntarily, and I was like, oh my God. I said, that's what Bruce did. That's why you see those guys in the movie. He can do it in certain degrees. So he can do it with such finesse there's this dynamic involuntary motion that is stunt guys that are there that happens. And I said, wow. I said, can you teach me that? And he goes, well, we're gonna have to talk about that. I said, oh, I said, okay. I said, well, I know one thing. No one has showed me that, and no one has made me feel that. And I said, I need you, because if I don't work with someone of your caliber, I said, I'm gonna fail. And I knew. I was like, that's the closest thing to the real thing. And I said, can I ask you three questions? He said, yeah, go ahead. I said, was Bruce a young master of sorts? He goes, oh, absolutely, yes. I said, was he a real fighter? Could he really dish it out? He goes, oh, for sure. And I said, okay. And I said, third question, can you teach me that? And he goes, okay. He goes, let's talk with Rob and get on a program. And yeah, he goes, just listen to what I say. Just follow my lead. I said, absolutely, let's go, let's do it. And from then on, it was like, I was like, I really felt like he took me under his wing, and he really wanted to honor Bruce for what Bruce gave him. And Bruce gave him a lot. And I think Bruce influenced people that way. He like changed their world upside down and made them see it in a different light. And I think that's Jerry felt very honored to be able to pass this knowledge down, and the whole essence of what Bruce was emulating.
Well, I think it's testament to the movie that, I don't know, maybe it has been done since, but it certainly hasn't been done as successfully since you played Bruce. And it's one of those movies that I really kind of remember from my childhood, and I love it. It's up there with, The Jungle Book is one of my other favorites as well. It's like that the training for that just sounds insane, and obviously the shape you were in is nuts.
Yeah, we had a lot of conflict too. We had conflict because Rob Cohen had this idea that the place where Bruce wanted to take his fight choreography in films was kind of more towards this Jackie Chan-esque kind of like choreography, where it's like fighting for like minutes and minutes and minutes, da, 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 da. And Jerry was saying no. Said Bruce was into like Zatoichi and like Musashi, and he was into these less is more effective, and not these elongated fight scenes. He goes, it's not realistic. And so we had this thing where Jerry and Fran were, his wife, were bringing in this essence of like the Bruce. And then we got this other fight choreographer from Hong Kong, John Chung, who was actually in the film. And he was bringing his idea of choreography. So there was a lot of clashing about, in the film, you wanted to see kind of an arc of like what Bruce was and what he became, how his movement and abilities changed over this little short span of film.
Mm-hmm.
But that was that was a big. I remember the two teams who almost got into fisticuffs with
No.
with like, oh yeah. In Hong Kong, they were like two sides. We had Jerry Poteet's guys, there, kind of doing the, trying to teach them the Bruce thing, and then you had the Hong Kong guys with their own set of concept, and it was like, it was like that was turned into a little beat.
And have you kept up martial arts and obviously fitness? I mean, I was watching your new movie and I was like, the guy is still in the shape he was in 30 years ago. Like, you still do all the martial arts and stuff?
I dabble in it. I teach my daughter. It's when I get a project that I have a purpose to train, then I really try to utilize my martial arts training to do that.
Well, Mulan, you looked really you looked big in Mulan.
I had an incredible trainer for that, like a fitness trainer, just an amazing. He taught me so many things, but we wasn't martial arts training. It was just strictly kettlebells and bear crawls and just that kind of general fitness. But like he brought me. We agreed to get into like 4% body fat, and that was like the best shape. It was like the best shape I've been in since Dragon, and actually probably better than Dragon. But age, it's like it's different. Your body can be strong, but a lot of times your joints are just aged a little bit. So there's that. But he definitely brought me to a place where I felt youthful, and that was like I think I was like 53 or something, and so that those little like things that not little but that's like good 6 months of work.
Yeah. Just a short space of time where you're training every day.
And then a lot of suffering, you're walking crooked every day and you just pay for it, but in the end it's like, oh, okay, I don't maybe I'm not as extreme, but I still like monitor my diet. I still kind of work around my homestead, quite a bit, doing physical labor. So that, helps keep me in shape. And not real purposeful athleticism. But because moving quickly is like different. It's like you can pull something if you're not, when you're older, you have a lot more recovery time. So you need more recovery time. And I know that. I realize that, it's like I got to really warm up. I'll do like an hour of a bicycle in order to warm up, just to start doing like kettlebells or weights or anything like that.
I guess it's just over time you adapt, don't you? And you change with the times and kind of see what your body responds to.
You all have limitations, you come into them and then it's like, okay, how do I work around this? But I do find that physically, if I don't work out, I get a lot of aches and pains. So if I do stay on a regimen, it really helps relieve, all that atrophy and stuff.
And I want to ask you about, because I mean, I've indulged in all the things that, my childhood and asking you all the questions, but I want to ask you about your new movie. I mean, it's a very different film to the others we've talked about so far.
The story I need to tell you is true. I offer and dedicate it to my people, the native Hawaiian.
We don't speak that shit. Speak English, boy.
You are to shoot on sight, regardless of weapon, gender, or age.
Mai ai ka inu I loko o ko uwai e ka uki kan. E le ku ana.
Ya la ko ua maki no kako. Ya la ko ua.
Until the final disappearance.
You another trophy. He obsesses, and he will not stop until you are dead.
How did this project come about? Was it seems like a bit of a, maybe something that's close to your heart, a smaller project that, I mean, it's very different from the other movies. For the audience that haven't seen it, how would you describe this movie?
It's a tragedy that was, set in Hawaii in the late 1800s, and where Hawaii went through a pandemic of leprosy that spread through a lot of communities. And during this time, it was a real uprising, and conflict, because the Hawaiian monarchy, which stood for many generations in the Hawaiian Islands, um, was disposed. And American businessmen came in and basically illegally overthrew this country, that was recognized by many other countries, significant independent countries. And anyway, in this story, there's a family that was had contracted leprosy. The father and son had contracted leprosy, and this new provisional government that came in started changing the laws, and they started wanting to quarantine all these leprosy people into the island of Molokai, which, if you don't know, the Hawaiian Islands are separated by in these immense and really rough bodies of water, that these really amazing channels. And to be isolated on that island means, like, is basically a death sentence, because you're left there, and any marriage license or any deeds or anything were null and void. So you basically abandoned there. In any sense, this family decided that this government was not going to separate them, and they were going to stick together. And in order to do that, they had to go live in sort of isolation on the island of Kauai, which was their home. And in the process of fleeing, there was interaction where the sheriff was shot by Ko'olau, my main character, and that caused a whole ripple effect. And so they had to get out of there quickly. And the standing president, Sanford Dole, who he kind of lost face with this whole incident, and he sent a regiment of soldiers out to go retrieve these fugitives. And that's where the story sort of comes into face with they're trying to escape or trying to survive with a bounty over their heads. And it really is the story was taken from the wife's memoirs, that when she finally came out of the bush, her account was taken down. And so it's a lot of the dialogue in the film that the character of Pi'ilani, the mother and wife, it was taken directly from this Hawaiian woman's words.
Oh wow.
And her whole experience with trying to find all these multiple shelters to avoid capture. And so it really is, it has a lot of universal principles in it that really ring true, to just basic humanity, and the freedom to choose not to be separated as a family. Nothing will separate that. And so the idea that you make your vows, in front of God, and no man or government should, be decisive to divide that.
I mean, it's a very, well, as I said before, a very moving film. And without giving it away to the audience that haven't seen it, I mean, there's a few moments in it, but there's a particular one near the end with, a particularly horrible piece of work. And the scene was just like, just watching it, I was like, oh, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I can't really say what it is without giving it away, but
Yeah, yeah.
he ends up shooting a few people. And it's just, I mean, the fact it's based on a true story and everything else is, yeah, it's a very affecting film, but I really enjoyed it. And I thought, as I said before, it's just a beautiful looking film. And part of that is, I presume it was shot on location. Was it in Hawaii?
Yeah, it was on the what they call the Big Island of Hawaii, or Hawaii Island. And it came about like the film director, David Cunningham. I've been an acquaintance of his for many, many years. And he talked about it for a number of years, I think about maybe 8 years or something. And he kept wanting to do it. And he had other, options that he wanted to do as well. But then I read different versions that John Fusco, the writer, put together. And it was like a big budget movie, and then became a medium budget movie. And then during the pandemic, David Cunningham really wanted, he says, I think we got to do it now. It's now or never. And so they sized it down. They like made it a micro budget and sized it down and like got rid of like all the fluff. And I said, you know what? This feels so direct and so genuine and like no wasted motion. I said, let's do that. He goes, really? Are you game? I said, yeah. So we made a film about a pandemic in Hawaii's history during a pandemic. And everyone was, PPE'd up, and like, it was, and we all converged on this ranch, this one off-grid farm on the north side of the Big Island. And we were basically, all the actors were quarantined there. And so once you arrived, you couldn't leave. And a lot of people had like little yurts they lived in. We had my family and I had a little bungalow, and sleeping on the floor. And the makeup chair was like maybe 2 minutes walk from where I slept. So it was like this weird like convenience, but a real kind of like sense of like roughing it. And very little money. And like I said, the place is off grid, so there was like these generators. They had these big windmills that would charge their batteries. And then when the hair and makeup woke up in the morning and tried to run all the hair dryers, a lot of times it would shut down the system, because the lights and the pull of electricity was not what they're used to. And so it was a real interesting experience that my kids won't forget. And we just kind of like, and because it was on our island, it was like load up the van with all our stuff, and it was like a camping trip. Drive drive the 2.5 hour drive up to the ranch and like park it, and that's it. We're there. And amazingly, it was only shot in 16 days.
Oh, wow.
With an additional, and it
That's
doesn't, and that's what I love about it. It doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like crunched. It breathes. And we had like 2 additional like shooting days, which was like months down the line. So I guess you could say altogether 18 days. But for that initial,
incredible. Wow.
yeah. And just you never. And here I am working on a TV show for Disney Plus called Tugi Kamialoa, and I told the showrunner what our time frame was to shoot this film. She just dropped her jaw. And for what we made it for, because the budget on these TV shows are so much greater, than what we had.
That's mad, isn't it? That's so quick though for something like that. I mean, the film as well, it feels quite epic, and it feels like it should be like a 2.5 hour Dances with Wolves. Well, that's even longer than that. It's like 3.5 hours long. But it feels like it, but it's actually a really short film. It's like 1 hour 35, 1 hour 40. But it goes really quickly as well. But it just feels quite epic in scale when you're watching it.
Yeah, and there was scripts. There were previous scripts that I read that were like really got into more like the structure of like the government at the time, and a little more fleshing out of character, and you know, you don't. It's a toss up. Yeah, you don't know if that's going to be a hindrance or just it's just, you know, fodder, or if it's actually effective to making the emotional through line. So I think that, you know, that was the decision of John Fusco and the director.
Oh man, it's a great film, and I wish you all the best with it.
Most embarrassing moments, yeah.
Whew.
You've been put on the spot now.
Yeah, it's like, okay. I know there are a lot of incidents where it was rather painful. And you know,
It's a safe space that you can share this painful moment.
Oh, let's see. Okay. I remember when I was filming Dragon, and there's a scene where we're doing the dance, right? The dance with the sailors. And there's a scene where I'm supposed to put my feet up against the sailor's chest and push off, and then my shirt rips.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
right. And I fall down and I kip up. So we're doing that, and these Hong Kong stunt guys, you know, when we do that, because the shot is kind of like top to bottom, you know, feet, everything. You couldn't have a crash pad or anything. So these Hong Kong guys were supposed to be just off camera. And as I pushed off and went backwards and the shirt ripped, they were supposed to bring that mat right up under me. So I hit something soft. And we did it a number of times and it was perfect. And then I think one of these takes, it was like they did it and their timing was off or something. And I just hit the solid floor. Like it was like concrete or something. And it made a loud boom. And I thought I broke my back, and I was just like,
God.
And then I laid there, and I was like, shit, can I move? And then I got up, and I was so angry that then later on I said I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed because I just, you know, when you lose your cool like that in front of like everybody, it was just like, oh my God. But I didn't know if I had broken my back or not, and everybody, it's like when that big boom hit, you know, everybody's like. The whole gym went silent. It was like, oh shit.
Oh my
I didn't know if they're gonna haul me off in a stretcher or not, but it was one of those moments, you know. It was just
you could have ended up in that circular thing with your body all stretched out like
exactly,
in the
movie, right? Just like in the film.
Yeah.
So what I can remember, I'm sure there's others that you know, was just more embarrassing. But
oh no, Jason, that was perfect. And I'll let you go and enjoy. Is it tonight you've got? Did you say you had a screening of it tonight?
Yeah, we have the theatrical premiere tonight. Last night was the Asian American Pacific Islander Film Festival that we showed at, and then then we got another screening on Saturday and stuff. So
awesome!
We'll
all the best.
Yeah, hopefully get some traction, get some good critics in, and see what they say.
Yeah.
Put out some press.
Yeah, I have no doubt. And all the very best with it, man. And this has been a real pleasure. So thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. Yeah.
Take care. Cheers, man.
It's a Laughing Film, motherfucker. Subscribe and like and follow.
Thank you to our guest, Jason, and thank you to the Original Entertainment and Culture Agency. And as always, thank you to our sponsor, BetterHelp.
No one really came close to what he was saying or what he was preaching or what he was developing.
There was something incredibly charismatic and vibrant about him.
He can be scary. And then very tender and very sincere.
I think that's why so many people, male and female alike, are so enamored by who he was.
Universal Pictures and director Rob Cohen bring the saga of martial arts legend Bruce Lee to the big screen in Dragon, The Life of Bruce Lee.
I'm trying very hard to be true to the family and to make sure that it's a testament to the man, and also to be true to the fans who know the story.
Based on the biography by his wife Linda, Dragon follows Bruce from his delinquent youth in Hong Kong to a fresh start in the United States, tracking his rise to fame through the action, romance, and mystery that were a part of his remarkable life.
I'm really so pleased that someone is finally doing a picture about Bruce and about his life, more than just as a martial artist, but how he lived and how he loved and our family life. He could be the most sensitive and tender person, and I think this comes across in his films, but even more so in his life.
Actor Jason Scott Lee was chosen for the pivotal role of Bruce Lee.
Hi, Mom.
Though physically right for the part, Jason had had no training in the martial arts.
I felt if you take a martial artist and teach him to act, it won't work. But you could teach an actor the martial arts, and with a little bit of luck, you might get someone who could pull it off. What we got was a lot of luck.
As a child, I was a fan of Bruce and had really enjoyed his work and his choreography and his charisma. Getting involved in Bruce's philosophies and Bruce's beliefs helped scare away all the fears that come into actually portraying a legend.
Jerry Poteet, who studied with Bruce Lee, was brought in to coach Jason in the gritty style of the master.
Bruce was a fighter, street fighter. He'd get out and he'd get into it, see? So he had that, he wanted that on the screen to be able to say that his fights look real.
Bruce strived not only to excel in the martial arts himself, but to share his philosophies with the Western world.
There you go, you see. It isn't size or strength that matters. It's focus.
Lauren Holly plays Linda Emery, the woman who would become Bruce's wife, despite her mother's objections.
So let's get down to the real issue. Children. They won't be white, and they won't be Oriental.
They'll be American. Linda's American. I'm American.
You're an American citizen. You're not really an American.
One of the biggest problems in Bruce's life was that he had a really hard time being accepted here in America. Being a Chinese man was very difficult. Bruce not only had a big problem being accepted from the Americans, but he also had a problem from his Hong Kong countrymen that were living in America.
We do things differently here. One of the things we do not do is teach our secrets to whites, blacks. They are the enemy.
They are not the enemy. They just don't know us. We've been so close for so long. They've never seen the real beauty of our culture. Let's show it to them.
I think he was unique because he stood in the middle of two fantastically powerful cultures, the Chinese culture and the American culture, so that he was able to single-handedly pull the two cultures together to make both sides understand each other better.
For Lee, however, his accomplishments were often overshadowed by a dark force which plagued his life.
3 months before Bruce actually passed away, he collapsed at the studio. And he told me later that something was trying to drag him down and away from life.
He said it was like fighting a demon, and we all have demons. So one of the first obligations of understanding a character is to understand his dark side and what drives him. Bruce was a driven man. I mean, incredibly driven.
There's something extra special about Bruce. It's more than just his personality. There's a charisma that comes across on the screen.
I'm Bruce Lee.
I love the story. It's a great story.
This place is eating us up. Can't you see that, Bruce?
I want to stop breaking my wife's heart.
Get it?